My dad recently told me, "Why are you showing off?" He said, "I don't understand why you have to write on social media that you have gone to this university or that you worked at this company or that you published this article. I think that's bragging and that you should be more humble." So I explained to him that I wasn't doing that to catch attention. I was doing that to connect with friends from university or with ex-colleagues or simply to share with my friends and those who care what I've done, what I've been up to so far. He reluctantly let it go, but I could still sense a sense of discomfort. Like he didn't really approve what I was doing. As an adult, I've done a lot of work to hear it differently now, but I think it's still worth exploring to just see how growing up in an Asian household has shaped my sense of identity and my sense of confidence. Hello, my darlings. Welcome to Tea O'Clock, where we drink tea and talk about life. My tea of the day is a Vietnamese breakfast tea made from wild tea leaves harvested in Hà Giang, Vietnam. So let's get started. Growing up, I never heard my parents compliment me, even behind my back. And I know this because I stood behind a wall and I eavesdropped on them speaking to their friends about me. So if someone would say, "Oh, she's such a good kid," they would respond with, "Oh, thank you, but she still has a long way to go." Or that, "Oh, she's so stubborn." They were truly loving parents. And I said it before that I really did feel really loved and well cared for when I was growing up. Somehow, I also know that they were proud of me. However, they never said it out loud, nor did they allow me to express that pride for myself. I remember this one time, it was during a recital. Sorry, it was after a recital. I wasn't chosen for a performance. So I said to my mom, "I know I'm good, but why wasn't I chosen?" And she scolded me with, "You shouldn't brag like that. That's not humble. That's not nice. Plus, you're not that good anyway. You should try harder." I never really asked her about it afterwards, but looking back, I could sense that she was doing it to protect me from disappointment, which was a good intention, I would say. However, to a child, that completely destroyed my confidence. I remember being so embarrassed and hurt. The lesson was clear. If you think you're good, you're probably not good. And don't ever say it out loud. Don't be proud of it. Carrying this into adulthood has been interesting. Whenever I had accomplished something, I would have a brief moment of joy and pride, but then it would be immediately followed with dismissal and caution. "This is not worth celebrating. I should try harder. There's a long way to go." Taking compliments feels so wrong to me, like I don't deserve it. I remember this one time my friend had complimented me, and then I would say, "No, no, no, no. I'm not that good. It's just luck." And then she would respond with, "Why don't you just take my compliments? It makes me feel good to make you feel good. Plus, I think you deserve it." And I think women who know how to take compliments and who know how to accept them are so sexy and self-assuring. I don't think it's arrogant or it's bragging at all. So I try to do that now. Whenever I feel the urge to just deny or just refuse compliments, I would consciously make an effort to stop that urge and just smile and say thank you. I've done a lot of work to recognize this pattern in me, but obviously is pretty deeply rooted, and every now and then it resurfaces, and I could still see that little girl being so hurt and embarrassed. I don't really blame my parents though. Um, they grew up in a different time, and I think they did what they did because they wanted to protect me. So they grew up poor in post-war Vietnam when the country was completely closed off to the West. So the sense of collectivism was even more amplified. Everything you did or said could be seen, heard, observed, and judged by others. In Vietnam, not accepting compliments and staying humble are really considered virtues. Under Confucianism, humility was closely tied to morality. A humble person is a good person, and an arrogant person, by implication, is someone of lesser character. So, this Confucian teaching, which emphasized humility, provide us with a moral framework which encourage us to build a strong inner confidence and also help to keep the social order and the sense of collectivity in check, which was important at the time because Vietnam was trying to rebuild itself from the ground up. So we needed the entire collective effort to do it. However, because of the historical context, this humility, this noble trait was unfortunately weaponized. A reputation for arrogance didn't just mean that you were not a good person, it could also threaten your social mobility. The face and the honor were everything. And my parents grew up in a world like that. So I am a Vietnamese woman living and working in Canada. And as an Asian immigrant in the West, I live with this tension between the sense of hypervigilance and the West expectation for self expression. And because of the way that I was taught growing up, I mistook my parents' protective silence for an inward confidence that doesn't need external validation. But the truth is, it wasn't an inward confidence at all. It was the way that I was taught. It was more of a way to avoid external judgment. For a very long time in the workplace, I would do the work and I would say nothing because I thought if I just kept delivering, someone would notice. And sometimes they did, but more often than not, they didn't. And anyone who's worked in a corporate world will probably know that the people who get ahead are often the ones who know how to talk about their work and know how to make themselves visible. There's a real cost to invisibility at work. Opportunities would pass me by. I would be overlooked for things that I knew I was genuinely qualified for, simply because the people who made the decisions didn't know that I was qualified for it, didn't know that I was capable, because I had never told them. And I know I'm not alone in this. I know that so many of us would fall into this mode of being the mono minority. We are diligent, we are uncomplaining, we are easy to work with, but also easy to be overlooked, frankly, because we've never asked to be seen. And I struggle with this so much. Every time I thought about sharing about my achievement or being a little bit more vocal about my contribution, I would hear this voice in my head that would say, oh, you still have a long way to go. This is not worth talking about. This is so small. Be humble, work harder. Now, as an adult, after lots of reflection, I realized that this voice wasn't actually Eastern wisdom. It was more of a childhood wound. When I actually looked more closely into Confucian teaching, I realized that when Confucius spoke of a noble person being poised but not arrogant, he was talking about an inner confidence that is so firmly rooted in itself that it didn't need any external validation. He was not talking about shrinking into invisibility. So that's the real merit in Confucian teaching, an unshakable sense of self that is not dependent on external validation. And that is genuinely valuable. And that is something that I'm working on developing in myself to build that unshakable sense of self. So I recently had this conversation with a mentor, and she's a woman who's had a very successful career training people across the world. And she mentioned this concept of being culturally fluid. She grew up Canadian, polite but firm. But when she worked in America, she had to be more assertive and bolder. When she worked in Russia, she had to be more autocratic. In Norway, she had to be more egalitarian. And she's also spent most of her career in male dominated rooms. So she had to learn how to read the room, how to present herself differently, and how to adapt. She told me that it pains her sometimes and that it's not always easy and it doesn't always feel fair. She told me that having this kind of cultural fluidity is not comfortable at all, and it requires you to sit with this discomfort. However, it was what she had to do to grow. It was also clear that she was not being inauthentic, regardless of whichever version of herself that she presented in the room, whether it was the more egalitarian version or the more autocratic version or the more assertive or the very polite Canadian version of herself. That was all her. There were different parts of her that she chose to reveal depending on the room that she was in. Her experience, paired with all the inner work that I've been doing on myself, showed me the path forward. The East values social harmony. Being openly confident or overtly loud can be seen as disrupting the social harmony, whereas the West places emphasis on the individuals. So visibility is rewarded. Neither of the side is better because they're just protecting different values. For me personally, I choose a more intentional middle way, taking what is good from both sides and adapting to the environment that I'm in. Eastern philosophy encourages me to build an inner confidence that is not dependent on external validation, and the Western way of thinking encourages me to express it. I also think that true humility is not about denying your achievements or hiding them away. It's not about staying quiet about your hard work. Humility, as I've come to understand it, is this openness to lifelong learning while still acknowledging the achievements you've made and your hard work. Claiming credit where credit's due is not boasting. It's just simply stating a fact. My dad's dislike of being seen is more of a product of his time when blending in and social acceptance were matters of survival. And I understand and I respect that. But the world that I'm living in now is very different. And in this world, visibility and audacity move the needle. It's also worth acknowledging that my dad is a man and I'm obviously a woman. In traditional Confucian teaching, a man's quietness is often interpreted as stoic dignity and wisdom. So even if he was quiet about his work, success would come to him in different terms than it does to me. Even if he didn't say anything about it, he would still have an easier time being recognized than me. Being a soft spoken woman in a workplace is, as I've come to realize, it's not an advantage. It can actually be seen as a lack of initiative or drive. If you are doing good work and you're being quiet about it, it can be perceived as lacking of ambition, which hugely limits your potential for growth. So, in order to succeed in this world, I would have to play the game differently. Honestly, the tension still exists. I still feel uncomfortable being seen, but this emotional discomfort is actually a sign that you are actively rewriting your instincts. And this is especially important for people pleasers like us whose instincts are working against ourselves. Don't be afraid of the emotional discomfort. Just sit with it. Give yourself time. So, back to my dad's question. Why are you showing off? And my answer is I am not showing off, I am showing up. And there's a difference. Showing off is about seeking superiority over others, whereas showing up is me refusing invisibility. Posting about my achievements on social media or reaching out to people from my past universities or sharing about my thoughts and ideas, none of that is boasting. It is me making myself more visible and showing my confidence. Humility and confidence don't contradict each other. You can be humble, but still be confident. But the way that I was taught in the past actually led me to having low confidence instead of developing genuine humility. I still carry my parents with me and I still feel the caution. However, I'm trying to learn how to hold both truths at once, developing an unshakable sense of self and knowing how to express it. I am also learning to become more culturally fluid and know which one to choose depending on the environment that I am in. If you grew up in similar cultures and experience the same friction, I hope this finds you. I hope you find my sharing helpful. The world you're navigating right now may ask something different of you than the world that your parents grew up in, but just remember that you are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say, I'm proud of myself. That's becoming. Cheers.